Donna Hopkins Pro Football Plus out here as the Washington Commanders introduced their new offensive coordinator in Cliff Kingsbury and their new defensive coordinator in Joe Witt. And Lake, here with Lake Lewis, After Practice Podcast and the NFL Insider. And Lake, when you, first of all, before we talk about the coordinators, when you look at this staff of coaches that the Commanders are putting together, what's your first take? It look like they're knocking it out the park.
I like what I'm seeing. I mean, I think that they're bringing real football guys in, and we've been around long enough to know that we've seen our fair share of introductions like this, but today hit a little different, especially with Joe Witt. I mean, he talked about, the type of defense that he wants to bring to the party, and he wants to arrive at the party violently, and those were his exact words.
Like Dan said, it's more about the play style than anything else, okay? We're going to get that right first, and one thing that we're going to do, we're going to be a run and hit defense, all right? We're going to run, and I just told this to our staff, the defensive staff. We had our first staff meeting. The way that we live is not for everybody, okay? It's not, all right? Because we're going to run and put our bodies on people in a violent manner, all right? And so we're going to get that play style right first.
I like that. I'm talking about when you listen to him, he said he wants to arrive at the party valid, that everybody knows that they've been at the party.
Absolutely. And when you hear that, obviously that's coach talk, but the proof is in the pudding, because if you look at the Cowboys defense over the past few seasons, they led the league in turnovers for like 2 straight years. This year, we all know that they had a disastrous ending, with the Packers, but for the most part of the year, they were one of the top 5 units in all of football and creating turnovers as well. So I think if you're a young player for this team on defense, you should be excited because you get a younger mind that's a little bit more innovative than what was here before. And one of the things that stood out to me, Donna, was that he said that they're going to adapt and they're going to change and they're going to create a Commanders defense, not something named after someone else. They're going to create their own thing here, and it fits the players.
Well, and also he talked a little bit about, grooming this roster, and they're still putting it together. Everybody wanted to know as far as about the roster, but even on the offensive side of the ball, Cliff Kingsbury talked about that they're still assessing everything. But I asked Joe Witt also about, coming here with Dan Quinn and then coming here with Coach Quinn. Does that help you all jumpstart this defense, hit the road running a little quicker?
It does. So we have a base structure of what we want to do, but very similar to what we did when we went to Dallas, okay? Everybody just knew when we went to Dallas that we were going to run ATL 3s or the Seattle 3 packaged, and it was probably 4th or 5th game when they realized, oh, they're not doing that, okay? And so what we're going to do, and that's another reason why we brought coaches from different schemes, and we were very strategic from where we brought these coaches from, because we're going to build the Commander defense. It's not going to be exactly what we did in Dallas, okay? And if you think it is and you go watch all the Dallas film, all right, good for you. You're going to be mistaken, all right? We're going to build this thing. We have the structure that we want, but we're going to take the ideas from all the coaches that we have on the defensive staff. We're going to do it just like we did in Dallas. We listened to every coach on the staff in Dallas, and we built it together, and that's what we're about to do. We're about to build this thing from the ground up with the understanding that we do have a base structure of what we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something as, from us being former athletes, we were sitting up like, this is real leader coach talk. This isn't, it's my way or the highway. This is, I'm going to be flexible. I'm going to be adaptable, to what your game needs.
Yeah.
And I think for some of these young guys in that locker room over there, it's important because we heard things last year, and we know a lot of these guys felt like they had no say in what they were trying to do on the field, and they were being asked to do things, frankly, that weren't part of their games. It wasn't what made them successful in college. They got them drafted. So I think the coaches that they have in here now are all guys that, the first thing that jumps out about them is that they talk about their families and how that's important to them. So there's a loyalty aspect that comes with, and that may answer your question too, as far as why he followed Dan Quinn. He talked about how Dan Quinn did stuff for his kids.
Yeah.
So there's a loyalty factor. And I think when players pick that up from coaches where there's not going to be this coach against that coach, but it's one message, one unified message, it'll make these guys play better.
Yeah, I think the other thing I like what he said is that, how coaches, are there. He said that he's going to only be here for a certain amount of time as far as doing the day and putting the things together. But he said that it's too late after the fact. So he said that you're supposed to put the time in on the front end.
Yes.
If you're going to stay late, it should be on the front end and not on the back end. You trying to figure out what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, he was saying all the great things, but I think that when you look at the energy that they bring and the winning that they bring, you can just tell a shift right away in what was said, along with, what Dan Quinn had already said about his coaching staff. But just the way they put in this coaching staff, and me and Lake didn't even start with the offense. We jumped right to the defense.
The defense wins championships. And look, all we have to do is look at what happened this past Sunday in the Super Bowl. Everyone talks about Patrick Mahomes, as they should, because he's a great, one of the greatest of all time. But look at what Kansas City's defense did.
Yeah.
And they did that with a young unit. Obviously, Chris Jones is great, but they have a young unit. So I think if you're a Commanders player, you should really feel like things are going to change, because I'm almost convinced that they're going to change. I'm not saying they're going to a Super Bowl, but I think that they're going to be coached properly, and you're not going to see just the broken plays and 35-yard touchdown passes to the best player on the other team who shouldn't be open. So I think a lot of these things are going to change, and we're going to see more of an old school approach to what we saw, where there were bodies laying around on the field. So that's what we want.
Lake is talking about aggressive play, that's something that we really didn't see. And he talked about the fact that it starts up front with that defensive line. And they talked about Payne and John Allen, and he said it starts there. So they said that they're going to really break down each position. And that's the thing that they need to do, because how in the world are you going to assess a team when you don't break it down area by area? So they are in the early stages of doing this, but we're going to shift to the offensive side of the ball. And Cliff was asked about, the best quarterback, and he said, Patrick Mahomes. They said, what kind of quarterback are you looking for, as far as the NFL quarterback that sets the tone? I guess Patrick Mahomes. That was a no-brainer. But what did you take away from him? Because he was a little more soft-spoken, but he doesn't have to be a loud one. But what did you take away from what he said?
I'd like to think Cliff Kingsbury is going to be a silent assassin, and you think about the quarterbacks that he's coached. I mean, he's got a history of coaching some really good quarterbacks. I mean, Kyler Murray is still a very good quarterback in Arizona. He was working back from an injury last year. But I think overall, the elephant in the room is, are they going to try to do something to get Caleb Williams, because he coached him last year at USC? But I think regardless, I think Cliff Kingsbury's earned the opportunity to be a coordinator again. I mean, he was a head coach, and that seems to be the prevailing theme here, Donna.
Yeah.
They're bringing in coaches and Anthony Lynn, guys who at one point were head coaches. And the first thing Cliff Kingsbury told us today was, he's glad that all he has to worry about now is offense. He can do what he does best. He doesn't have to worry about the other side of the ball or special teams or just coaching in general, leading that way. He can just be an offensive coordinator, and I think that the offense will benefit from that. Yet again, another innovative young mind that won't be stuck in his ways.
Yeah, that's the thing about it, is they brought all of these all-star coaches in that have been there before. This league waits for nobody. When you look at your qualities and your strengths and everything, and to jumpstart this offense right quick, what do you think those things are?
Probably number one, I don't know what I don't know. I'm not afraid to ask questions and learn from these other guys, and if there's a better way to do it, we're going to do it that way. I'm big on evolving each and every year, doing breakdowns of the top college offenses, pro offense. What are they doing? How can we make that fit? And I think that's what it's about. The defense is always trying to catch up, and it's a cyclical game, and if you kind of are staying stagnant and not progressing and not evolving in your drill work and your scheme and your coaching practice, then they're going to catch up to you.
Did this before, so they don't have to be training new guys and everything. And for this team to be able to turn things around and everything, you need this type of coach. We get a chance to meet the position coaches next week, but it's interesting when you look at all the pieces they're putting together, and a lot of people have question marks. Draft, with the draft, they've hired an assistant general manager. So they're doing it right, because in the past, you know what? I like the fact that Dan Quinn gets the opportunity to pick his coaching staff. And all of these guys have had the opportunity to weigh in on other coaches to put those in Dan Quinn's ear, and they're all listening. So, I mean, this is a good thing, Lake. And we won't talk about the draft yet, because Lake has, his breakdown of who he thought. But we really just wanted to talk about what we saw in the new offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. But Lake and I was looking at each other across the room. And and especially when Joe Witt, and like he said, Kingsbury is the silent assassin, but Joe Witt let you know where he's coming from right off the bat.
And that's what you need from your defense. You need it to start with the leadership. You need those guys to know that this guy's going to be demanding, but at the same time, you can tell that he's going to be one of those guys, if they make a big play or take one back to the house on defense, he's probably going to be the first person there to chest bump him. You can see that it's going to be that type of energy. And they said that about Dan Quinn. He said that he's going to energize the city. Those were his exact words. That's the kind of stuff.
It'd be good to energize the team.
Well, yeah, I mean, this fan base has been tormented for so long, Donna. I mean, this is just good. And we're not trying to sell you Kool-Aid. We're not trying to say, because we've seen it all. And there's been press conferences you and I have both walked out of like, yeah, all right.
What a waste.
Yeah, of course, we wasted our time. Today, I definitely did not feel that. I actually felt like, I'm not saying what the number of wins will be, but I can tell you the energy will be light years different from what we saw last year. Now, will that translate to more wins? Hopefully it does, but I can just say you're going to see better effort.
Yeah, fans, you know what? I think the Commanders are finally going to turn the pages in the right direction in moving this team forward. You'll have a lot more to hear from us out here at the Commanders training facility, practice facility. Commanders Park. I mean, I'm so used to saying the other park, but the Commanders Park. You're going to hear a lot more from us. I can't wait to meet some of the position coaches and just hear from them. And when I look at them, Ken Norton Jr. and, like you said, Anthony Lynn and Brian Johnson, and a lot of these people came from other teams, and it's amazing because a lot of people wouldn't think that some of these guys would come here at Washington, but I think they feel that this new ownership wants to move this team in the right direction. So these coaches that they putting together, I mean, I think this fan base should be excited right now. And as Lake said, doesn't mean anything on paper. It's according to wins and losses, but I think you're going to see a lot more as we move forward. So again, like in parting words, what's your last words for everybody that's going to be watching this? Tell them where they can catch you at and all of those good things.
Yeah, it's exciting times for all of us. It really is. And you can follow me on social media, Lake Lewis on Twitter, or X as it's called now, Lake Lewis Jr. on IG and Facebook. You can check out the After Practice podcast. Subscribe to that if you can, please do. And then you can go to sportsjourney.com, and then you'll see some more of my NFL work coming up real soon.